And okay, let me see. Okay, so good morning or good evening, everybody who's here. This is our 37th PC Open discussion. And based on what we discussed last week, I guess that was Rishikesh who asked for it. He's not here yet, but his idea was to talk about how we use text to AL converter. And this is basically for partners who are still supporting customers on CAL. And this utility from Microsoft helps you to transition your CAL custom code to AL. So we'll go through it. But I guess there is one question that we have before we'll take that, and then we'll go there. So let's go through the normals. If you don't know how to register, here's the link that gets updated every week. And if you are in the meeting and you don't want to go through the hassle of registering every week, just drop your name and email address and I'll make you default attendee, as most of the people who are here are default. So first, let's talk about what's coming up. We also talked about this last week. The Business Central 2021 Wave 1 launch event is coming up this week. So be there. There are great sessions which are already recorded. It's on April 13. There is a keynote which will happen live, and then there are, I guess, 18 or 20 sessions which are pre-recorded about what's new in the product. Utilize those recordings. I guess last time they were available for 6 months or a year, but the content is great, and the things that you can learn there are super important. Then next up, I hate to do this, but there's an event coming up called Power Community Business Central Bootcamp, and it's on 16th and 17th April, which is coming weekend. There is no registration cost, and there are different tracks on it. Like there are functional tracks of Business Central, development track, and then there is a roundtable. I'm also talking there, and this time I'm talking just only about what you need to do as a developer if you are, transitioning to be an AL programmer from a CL programmer. Like what products you need to know about, why we use certain things, like why you use Dockers and why we use source control. Nothing deep into it, but just an introduction so that people don't get lost when they get into the AL programming with Business Central. Here's a link where you can register for it, and there are great sessions there. So have a look there, and that's this week, coming weekend, those 2 days, which is I guess Friday and Saturday. Okay, so let's go through the questions, and I guess we have Mohammed already with us. And Mohammed, do you want to explain us the question so that we can talk about it?
Yes, actually, I just want, actually, I just want to know if I have like more entities in Business Central, and every entity has its data from with the same chart of accounts, but they have other numbers because they are different entities, but they are all of them belong to one group. So I just want to know if I can consolidate those entities in one consolidated entity.
So
And yeah,
go ahead.
and the problem is, I actually have seen some videos that I have to set up a new company, and in this new company, I have to set up business units and things like that. And these business units are the entities who are belong to one group. But the problem is that I cannot get the good data from those entities to the new entity which I made.
Okay, so when you say entity, as in, and I guess others, if you guys understand it, please help here. But When you say entity, that means a Business Central environment or a Business Central table, or let's say, let
They
me
are like
open. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, just one thing. They are there is a parent company which has
Okay.
two or more entities, and they are subsidiaries companies, and all these companies are their data are just are recorded in Business Central with different entities. But when I want to consolidate those entities to one, so the parent company and the subsidiaries, I just get a problem with getting the data of those entities to the consolidated company.
Okay, so I guess I understand. Let me rephrase it into the Business Central word or understanding.
Yeah,
So you have either multiple Business Central environments, or have one environment where there are multiple companies, and then you want to have a kind of a consolidated company. Will that be a fair statement?
yes.
Okay. So I haven't researched about it, but I know a little bit about it. That there is an extension from Microsoft, which is, let me see, yeah, Company Hub. Okay,
All right.
uh, I don't know how to set it up, to tell you the truth, and I'll not bluff it around because I have no idea how to set it up. But I'm pretty sure that there are articles about it where you can even link multiple environments. Okay, so you
All
can
right.
check that this is one of my environment. I guess this is where you enter those details, and then using those environment you can create a, okay, I'll have to see what is available here, but I'm pretty optimistic that what you are looking for will be possible with this extension, which you can see on your environment, as in on your SaaS environments for sure. So let me find some documentation for it. And anybody who knows about it, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so yeah, here is MSDN document about it, which talks about it. For some organizations, user often have access to multiple companies, either in the same tenant or in other tenant environment, such as in another company or in a completely different tenant. Having an easy overview of all company and easy way to access them through them is the key to work efficiently. The company hub in Business Central gives you just that. Okay.
All right. Nice. So it's like a company hub. Company.
This is played for user need access. You need to list access. An extension dedicated to. It doesn't seem to do that. What I was thinking. But anybody.
Like yeah, for more information, if you have the balance sheet and the profit and loss statement,
Statements, yeah.
uh, you have for every entity those two sheets, and like you have an entity A, entity B, and entity C. Entity A owns 100% of shares of entity B and entity C, and those all those entities, they make activities, they make their own financial statements. But when you get to the end of the year, you want you just
To
need
consolidate
to
that, right?
yeah, you just need to get the real added value of all those groups. So you have to eliminate some entries posts between those entities, because if you just get the sum of those posts, you will get a double sum. So you get two more added value. But now you need to know what does the parent of the parent company of this group, what they did gain from all activities. So like the parent entity is A. They make 100,000, for example, they make 100,000 profit.
Right.
And C and B, they make 50 and 50. So you eliminate some post to get the 200,000, which is the real added value to the group. But if you didn't eliminate them, then you get 400,000, or you have also the current account, or you have also the equity of those groups. So you need to eliminate them. So to eliminate them, you have to consolidate the balance sheet and consolidate
Yes.
also the profit and loss statement.
Yeah, I
So
guess
this
I
I can do it
understand.
on paper, but I cannot.
Right.
I don't know how to do it in Business Central.
Yeah, I guess I understand your question, and what I'll do is I'll do a little bit more research on this, as in what is possible, and either ways, either I'll send you an email once I figure it out, if I can. Okay. And yeah, or I'll make sure that we discuss about it in next meeting if I find a solution about it. But anybody here
Oh,
in the
nice.
meeting who knows about it? Anyone that can help, Mohammed? Okay, sorry, Mohammed. I'll surely do some research on it, and if I find something, I'll surely let you know.
That would be great, because that would help me with the project for a school, which is
Okay,
very
sure.
important. And
Not a problem.
I appreciate your assistance.
Oh, not a
Thank you
problem.
very much.
I'll surely check that and we'll let you know.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's talk about kind of the title of the today's session, as this was the only question that I had. And feel free to ask any questions or drop them in chat if you have anything during this discussion. And what we are going to talk about is text to AL. So before I start going into text to AL, I would like to understand first how much or what we know about text to AL converter, and based on that, it'll help me to kind of go in deep of those topics, or kind of just skip some of the topics that everybody understood, right? So what I'll do is I'm putting a link on the chat for the poll, and you should be able to start voting on that poll. And let me open the section as I can on share the screen. The first question should be up right now. Okay. And can anybody see it?
Not yet.
In the chat, there is a link. If you click on that, you will see a question like that's visible on the screen at the same time. And let me see how many people are there, and I'll give you, let's say, a minute or so to kind of vote on this. Okay. So I guess everybody who wanted to answer already done it. So let me move to next question. Okay. What kind of inputs you need or a text to AL process accepts? Does it accepts a text file with CAL objects, or it can accept a text file or a delta text file? And the link is remain same. I guess the question would have been refreshed on your screens. I guess everybody voted. Anybody needs more time? Oh, so let's move ahead. A table can have custom functions and code in trigger of custom field, and this is with reference to while you're going to use it in text-to-AL converter, and this is related to base Microsoft table. Can a table have custom functions and code in trigger of custom fields while you're using it in text-to-AL converter? Okay. And then the last question is around the same thing. And this time it is for pages. When you're going to use those pages in text-to-AL converter, can they have custom functions, code and triggers of custom fields, and can they have new actions in the page?
Saurav, this is also at the time of using text to
Text-to-AL,
right?
yeah, text-to-AL converter. And Keshav, you have your hand raised. Do you have anything?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask you how to use block field as a text. So my and means
Block
like how can I
field as
insert anything?
text?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I
I
didn't
just
get
go
you.
through the NAP 2018,
Mhm.
and there I got something. Two functions are there available there. First one is get work description, and second one is set work description. So
Let's talk about it after the meeting. As in, we'll cover this, and if everybody else want to leave, that's okay. And you and me can talk about it. That's not a problem.
okay, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So that'll be all on this, and I'll stop the quiz. And okay, so I got an idea, and I can post the results as we go. But let's understand what is allowed in CL and what is not before you are planning to use text-to-AL converter by opening a Business Central 14 development environment like this. So let's understand it that when there is a table and you add new fields into that table, like this table have a custom field added, and I cannot zoom it for some reasons. Let me try this. Okay. If this is a field, now let's think about if this field was requested by user in Business Central. Can you add that field in Business Central? You can using table extension. So you'll use table extension, you'll create a table extension for table 81 and you'll just add that field. Now, if there is a validation in this field, let's say if there is some code here on validate, let's say this is my test code, test. Can this be part of table extension? It can be, right? Either on the validate or on lookup of that custom field. Let me save it. Okay. At the same time, if a customer requests to have a function which you think will be rightly placed into the general line table, you can always come here and create a function using table extension, right? So let's create a function for text-to-AL. Okay. And let's put some code here. Now, right now, what we are actually doing is we are modifying this so-called base app or base nav in DC14. But then this is different than doing a modification here, which is on the base Microsoft code, or disabling a field which is already defined by Microsoft, or changing a data type, or changing the length of a field to something else. Any destructive changes are not allowed, but any additive changes that you're doing in your Dynamics nav environment can still be taken forward using text-to-AL converter if they are not in between the base Microsoft code. So only additive changes which are not in between of base Microsoft code can be taken forward using text-to-AL converter. And we'll come to that, how that's possible. I haven't tested it with against BC18 because in BC18 we can add indexes which we call keys in the base table using table extension. But I haven't tested this, so I'll not do that. But before BC18, this area was also restricted that you should not have a new key added into the base Microsoft table. Now let's understand how we do that. So what I've done is I've created a sample custom which have some tables, which have some pages, which also have a report, and then there is a code unit which have subscribers for whatever the custom this is. Now, and this is against a series, I didn't build it. This is against a series which I written, I guess, 2 years ago about futuristic cal. How should you write cal that is ready for the future? So this is a 2-year article. I just downloaded objects from there. Before you plan to use text-to-AL converter, you should make sure that you are not doing two things. One, no destructive changes on any base Microsoft object. That's completely not allowed, as we all know, with introduction of AL. And second, don't do even additive changes in the areas which are restricted. So like you cannot add keys, right? In the pages, you cannot change what we call that, the drop down property you cannot change things in page, like you should not be changing the properties in the page. So don't touch the base code and don't do additive changes where it is not acceptable. Once you are good with that, like this is a custom which only have, let's say, field in this table, there is a field here, and then there is a field here, and we also added some code, not in this, I guess, we added in journal line. We added some code in the custom field on validate trigger, which is commented right now. That's okay. And also in the on lookup trigger. And we also added a function in this table, a new function, which have some code, let's assume. Now, all this, what I've done on this particular object is an additive change with respect to that new field that I have added. And this is a new function that I have added. Now I can actually utilize this whole object set to get converted into an AL extension code without doing anything manually, as in I don't have to create what we call that, page extensions or table extensions manually. So let's understand how we execute the text-to-AL converter. And where is my slide controller? Okay. So, and I did this mistake in past, and I'm pretty sure all of us would have done something like this, that I heard somewhere about text-to-AL converter. I found the minimum parameters that I can use to run this text-to-AL converter, and I limited myself to there. So in case of text-to-AL converter, the minimum parameters that you need is a source file where there's a text file of the objects that you want to convert to from CAL to AL, and then there is a target folder where you want these AL converted files to be placed. And we all started being crazy, picked up all objects between 50,000 to 99,000 and started converting them to AL without even going into details of what else text2AL.exe can do. So first, let's understand where you find it. So it's available in, and let me open my folder here, in your Role Tailor client folder in your Business Central 14. And you can also get it from the product DVD. You don't have to just install it for this. And then there should be something called as text2AL.exe. which comes up with the DLL, which have this logic written how to convert this. The only way to run it is from the command line. So you will open your command prompt where we will use this exe to convert our code. So let's go there and let's change the directory. And let's just write Txt2AL. Pay attention to this, that there are so many properties in here, not just the source and the target path. And that is important if you want to utilize the benefit of all the work that Microsoft have done to build this Txt2AL.exe. So let's understand some other parameters. So there are some additional parameters as we just saw. One is rename, which is by default set to true. The only intention is that the file should be renamed so that it doesn't conflict or clashes with the source text file, which makes complete sense. Then these are generic, like format, that it'll use a standard formatter. I haven't used any custom till now. But then if you have 200 objects in a file and you just want to convert reports, let's say, you can just filter it based on the type and then specify which type of objects you want to convert. So you don't have to convert the whole set. You can just filter it out that I only want these objects to be converted. But then there are some which you should use, and they are these. One is the extension start ID, and we'll see what that means. Then there is a runtime if you want to use it, an object file name pattern, extension object file name pattern, and data classification defaulting. So first let's start from pretty basic and then we'll come to this. So for using Txt2AL converter, what you need to do is you need to export out the custom objects, and Microsoft suggests to export out everything. It'll take some time. It's up to you how you want to play with it. I prefer to identify what objects I have modified that I want to take forward using Txt2AL converter. Once you identify those objects, as you can see on my screen, what I'll also do is I'll also have a similar database, but this time it is the base copy of Microsoft. This I have no custom, and I'm just going to filter out whatever objects that I'll need for my process to execute. These are my tables which have no customs. Make sure that this matches exactly to the build that you have on your custom objects. If you're not, if there is an ISV, that's a different situation. In that case, you need to have that ISV here, because the comparison will find out the delta between this and this object set. Because you can't, you should not be converting ISV code into AL, because that's ISV's responsibility to convert that. Okay. So what I've done right now is I have marked these objects, which are here also, base objects, and this will not have custom objects, obvious. And just to make my life simpler, what I'm doing is I'm just setting up the modified flag yes, so that I can use the PowerShell command to export it. Now, there is a possibility in Dynamic Snap that you can select these objects and export them out in text. But if you are planning specifically to use Txt2AL converter, then don't do that. That's a complete no-no into it. And we'll talk about it why. So when I run this as administrator, my PowerShell, which may not run because I have 2 or 3 versions stalled, but let's see. Okay. The first thing we are going to do is we are going to import that module, which is available in the role tailor client, so that we can use those commands. Okay. Now, once I load this, I'll have those commands to kind of export those objects out. So when you do export nav application objects, the parameters that you have here, and let's try doing the base first, is to get the database name, which is base database. So let's say base database, a path where you want to store it. What I've done is I've created a test folder on my D drive. Now, if you don't give a file name, it will split every objects as an individual file while you are exporting it. But if you give a text file name, then it'll export all the objects in one single file. And it's up to you how you prefer. There's no mandate around it. Then your server name. And then there is new Boolean called export to new syntax. And we'll see what that does. So once we click on this, and then I want to filter out anything that is modified. I don't want everything to be exported out. So what I've done is I've set these tables and pages to be modified as yes. So this filter will allow me to run or to export out those objects. And I'm pretty sure this will error out because I have multiple versions. So what I'll do is I'll copy this and I'll go to my development shell. Okay. Which is here. And I'll copy the same command, run this, and this is, oh, I have the wrong spelling for modified. All right. So it exported a file called base.txt into my folder, one file. Now I'm going to repeat the same command, but this time the database name will change and the file name will also change to, let's say, custom. And the database name is, let's see the database name. It's custom. Okay, nice. So this is custom. So when I exported these, this created the other file in my, where is my folder? Here. So I have these two files. You all would have created it in past to do comparison and things like that. Let's see what that Boolean that we were talking about did. This Boolean, export to new syntax. So when you use PowerShell using this export to new syntax, you'll see that the date and the time are converted into a different format than it would have been in a NAV export file. Does that make sense? And the other thing that happens is all your table references. So let me export this out. What is this, table 15? Okay. So if I export this table 15 into, let's say, drive test, table 15.txt. Okay. What happens here is table 15 will have all table references as table numbers, not table name. Right? When you are seeing this file, which is exported from the PowerShell using that Boolean, all these references would have been automatically converted to the table name. Because remember, AL doesn't understand table numbers. It does, but it's kind of major engine runs on the table names or object names, more or less. So when you use that Boolean in PowerShell, it changes these references to the actual table names or the page names or code unit names, rather than using the table numbers. So that's why it's mandatory to not to use file export from your development environment and use PowerShell to export it out, so that the files that are generated are AL ready. Any questions still here? Okay.
Saurabh, just one thing. The command which you run from development shell.
Yes.
Can you paste it in chat box?
Sure. It's this. You can just build it from like this. As in, I prefer to build it like this. It makes it easier. But I'll surely put it in chat. Let me see. Okay. So here is that command in chat. Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Okay. So once we have these files, what we are going to do is we are going to compare these and extract a delta out of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my PowerShell, and this time I'm going to say to compare nav application object. This is a built-in PowerShell command from nav 2013 R2 if you haven't noticed, but it was there for a while. It needs three things: where you want to store the delta, what is the path of the modified file or files. It's up to you. If you give the folder name, it will read all the text files from there. And what is the original path? In my case, I have exported it as individual files. So I'll take my base, copy path, and put it into the original one. I'll take my custom, I'll copy the path, and I'll put it into my modified. And then to store my delta, I'll create a folder called, let's say, CAL delta. I want to utilize this folder to store the delta that is generated based on this comparison. And again, if you see, there is export to new syntax. So let's do that. And let's click run. Okay, it worked. It said that while comparing your base to custom, which is original to modified, I saw that there are 4 new objects, which means inserted, and there were 8 objects which were changed. So if you see here, these were 8 objects which were changed. And if you see in this one, there were these 4 objects which were new. So that means our PowerShell comparison gave us the right count. If I come to the folder, I'll see something like this, which is delta. Now, interestingly, even a new object is called or tagged as file type delta, but it doesn't matter. If you open that file, this will be a full-fledged object. Same like in NAV, a full-fledged object. And if you see a let's say base table like table 39, you will see what was changed in it. Based on that comparison, it just generates the delta, which is there was an insert happened after this field, and the field number was this, field name was this was the table relation, and this was changed. Make sense? It just calculated the delta that came out of it. Now let's use the basic our Txt2AL converter, which is we'll do our Txt2AL.exe and then the basic 2 parameters, which are what? Okay, source and target. So I'll use source as my cal delta. Okay. And then I'll use target as, let's say, AL delta. I'll run this, and there is a problem. As in, it did convert something, but then there is a problem. It says that there is something happened on, let's say, on this function. So let's see what happened there. Okay. If I compare these two files again, and I search for that text which came there, I'll see that there is this crazy line start thing that is available in other areas also, which is causing this conversion problematic. So let's do this. Is what I'll do is I'll remove the content of cal delta because that seems a little bit odd, and also remove the content of AL delta. In some way or other, we need to make sure that the what we call that line feed or the line is skipped. That line can be skipped. And actually, I was struggling with it last week, I guess, or so, or maybe some time ago. And I did write an article about it, which is here. How to fix this line start issue if you have when you export your CL objects as text, because it was causing me problem while comparing two file sets. And we need to understand that we are not going to import this file again. We are just using it for comparison. So what you can do is you can pick this command from here. You can just remove anything that starts with line start in your text file. So what we'll do, I have already renamed these as base old and custom old. I'll just run that script on these two files and then we'll be good to go. Okay, so I'm moving to this directory. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the file name here. This is my source file where I see those line starts, and this is the target file that I want. So I can just do a base. And the other thing that I want is this time this should be custom old and this should be custom. Okay, let's run through these. That's completed. And that's also completed. And what it does is it just removes that references around that line start. So if you compare the old file with the new file, it'll remove all these line start references, which was causing this problem. Okay. So our file names are still same, base and custom. We can again do a comparison, which will fill my CL delta. So let's come back to PowerShell here. And we will view the command add-on, and this is the same command. Let's run through it. That's done. 4 and 8. My CL delta have the content. Now let's come back to my command prompt where I had the command written. Click up arrow and let's run this time. It converted everything without any errors or warnings. Now let's see by opening this folder into VS Code that what actually happened. Okay. So there is a new table that's created called expense, as we found that, which I guess everybody would have seen in past. But then let's look at table extensions. And let's look at GL account. What it did, it created a GL account table extension and added that field. It also created a GL entry account GL entry extension, added that field. And let's look at our journal line. It created the table extension and also pulled the custom code that we had written on that custom field, and also that custom function as a part of the table extension extraction from that code. If you go to the page extensions, I have added some fields after balance in this page. It was automatically added here. Which page is this? GL account card. So let's open that in CL and see. So in GL account card, what I did is I added this field expense code here after balance. And then I also had an action after ledger entries. So here I had this action called expenses. It brought all that as it is without me doing anything manually. But you will notice that the names are a little bit off. Why this says 70 million one? That is not something in my range. That is not something that I as a partner is allowed to utilize. So that looks a little bit odd. And that's where I said that we jump to conclusion pretty easily when we read about these features released by Microsoft. So when you see this list now, you see that there is a parameter where you can suggest at what point you want to use the start ID, what number you want to use to create your table or page extension. So in this command, which I was running here, I could have safely said that make sure that my extension start ID starts from 50,000. And before I actually run this, I'll just go ahead and clean my AL Delta folder. Okay. Let's run this. It did that conversion, and you would have noticed already here that it's converting it into the 50,000 range. So all my page extension started with, this one started with 50,001 because of, I should already have a page extension somewhere with 50,000, I guess. Oh, it didn't take that into account because it picked that number to the page 50,000, and then it started 50,001 here, 2 here, 3 here, and then table extension also because there was a table at 50,000, which doesn't make any sense. It should have taken the 50,000 for table extension also. But it'll give you nearby what you needed by just using this parameter called extension start ID. Okay. Now how runtime helps, and I never used it, and I might want to use it now with Business Central 18, is you can suggest which runtime version. And what is runtime, if you don't notice, is when you create a new extension like AL Go, this is your runtime version from 1 to 7.0 as of today for 2020 wave 1. So you can choose any of the runtime based on either, by default it says, the document says that it used the latest runtime. Otherwise you can give it a major and a minor number of that build and it should use it. Never used it, so I'll not kind of suggest anything around that. But the next one is my favorite, which is how you want conversion to take care of your object file name pattern, which is this name. Should it be page extension, the page extension number, the object type, and then the actual object.al? Or should it be called expense table.al? Or do you want to change the way these names are being generated? And we all know that we are being a little bit specific about our prefixes that we have to use, and we are also using them in our file names. So these two properties of object file name pattern and extension object file name pattern can actually help you to set the way you want to name your files, extension files and actual object files. So let's see that. What I'll do again is I'll come here and I'll delete my AL Delta. Okay. Go back to my commands here and let's try this again. Extension, will leave that as it is. And then I want my object file name pattern starts with the name of the file or the type of the file or ID of the file. But before I have a prefix, so I want to use, let's say, STH, which are my initials. And then I want to say a dot, and then I want to use the name. Then I want to use the ID of the object. And then at the end, I want to use the type of the object. Is it page, page, or table? In the same way, for my extension object file name pattern, I can again use a prefix, whatever your company uses, and then use the name. I normally prefer name after that. And then the target ID. That is the second thing I'll use, which is the target object ID, which I'm using. And then target name. And then type. And you can use other kind of separators other than dot. It's up to you. You can use hyphens and other things. It's up to you completely. Whatever is in this first part, this is the default, and then these are the other options that you can use, and you can use any combination. You can just use ID and name. It's up to you. So once you have done this and added these parameters, it didn't understood my target ID. I guess that's what happened here. Okay, let's see what happened. The table has been converted into the right way, which is my prefix, the table name, and the table number, and then the table type. So the new objects are converted correctly. In case of extensions, there seems to be a little bit problem, which is SDH, and let's see what else was there. So it said for extension object file name pattern, SDH, then the name, and then the target ID. It didn't understand the target ID. And I thought that is an option in the documentation. Let me try just with ID. Okay. Oh, I didn't clear it, but oh, okay, it repeated it. Okay, so yeah, these are the ways that you can use these, at least these three commands or three parameters, which is extension start ID, object name pattern, and extension object file name pattern. The next thing which is important is when you get into AL, and let me do a conversion again. Simple one. Okay. We'll talk about that in a bit. Then there are other parameters which I haven't used, but I wanted to bring it to your notice because we are talking about it. And if you think that you have some kind of .NET in your objects, then you can use these three parameters, which is, do you want to have a specify a prefix for all the .NET objects? And then these two parameters, which I haven't used. So I'll not talk much about it, but they exist. Test them out if they have .NET, if you have .NET component in your new objects or base objects that you have modified. Then these are kind of helping you, which are spatial parameters. Like if you want to track what's happening, is there an error, then you can enable this stack trace parameter. If there is a huge set of file, then you can run this text-to-AL conversion multi-threaded, as in multiple threads. But then there is a problem in case of extension numbers. So keep that in mind. I didn't find a situation where I'll have to run it multi-thread. But then these are the other options which are available, like translation format and legacy translation. But when you convert your code to AL, like we did, this code, this is more or less ready for AL, but not completely ready. And we'll go through that maybe quickly before we end this. So what I'll do this time is I'll come here and I'll create a new extension on this path called extension. Okay, and let's plan it for 7.0. And I'm going to tag it to my server so that it can download symbols. And then my business central is called as BC18 US sandbox. Okay. So this is my Docker environment. Okay, and I can go ahead and download symbol. Okay, so this gets created. I remove this, and then I select all these files and put it into my extension, and maybe inside a folder called source. Now, all these files are here. And the first thing is it should compile. So let me app.json, because that 50,000 is causing problem. Okay. If I do a reload, everything should look good at this point. Okay. So it seems like everything is compiling. There are no compile time warnings. But then that also means that we might haven't, and I don't know how many of you have used things, use the code cops, because that's super important to utilize with AL. Anybody used code cops in their development? No one? Okay. Okay, so code cops, what they do is they help you while you are coding, and it helps you where you are missing certain properties or certain best practices in your code. So they are super important. So what you can do is in your VS Code, you can add a file called settings.json, I guess that's what we call it. And here I can okay. I do use it. Let me see on my GitHub. If you haven't noticed, on these repos, you will find in all these files that there will be a let me see if we can set this up in settings. Open settings.json, and I already have some settings here, and I can also set my code analyzers, and I can set that I'm working for pertinent extensions, and I also need the UI cop, and then I also need code cop. Now, if you see, as soon as I enable those, the number of warnings started increasing here in this section, which starts from that I haven't used this expected comma where. Okay, here. Let me pick this and put it here. Okay. Now, if you see, there are so many warnings that started coming up as soon as I enabled my code cops for the process that I'm using. And it just helps you while you are building your extension. So I would prefer, if you are not using it for AL development, start using these code cops. And that's where you see that there are, the implicit width is something that is going to be removed in next version, or I don't know which version that exactly is. But you need to start fixing those, because these are warnings that are that'll become error in future. Okay. Now, when we did this conversion, we did a basic conversion, and if you know this, that on all the elements that are being displayed to users, either via page or via report, need to have an application area set. Is that correct? Anybody disagree on that? And maybe this is something that we can talk about. But if on any component that you want to show it to user, if the application area is not defined, then that component will not be visible to user. So where all it applies on the pages. It even applies on every field. It applies on every action. And in report, it applies on your request page. And give it a try. If you just create a simple page and don't assign application area and publish that app, you'll not be able to see that component where you don't have the application area.
So sort of it is necessary for that, because I had tried that, but I didn't face this kind of issue. Like without giving the application area, I published the page, but it didn't face like any issue, like the fields are not displayed on the page or whatever.
In which version you're talking about?
I'm 2018, eh?
No, not 2018. I'm saying about BC versions.
Okay.
Yeah. So try it out on any PC 15 or higher. If you don't choose or don't set the property application area, you'll not be able to see that particular part of that page or that field.
Okay.
Now, when you bring all your legacy data into the newer version, in this case BC 18, there is a lot of those pages or fields, GUI elements, where you want this. So there is great work done by one of the guy with this extension. I always forgot his name, called ALAZ extension. So if you don't have it, get this from Entedge. What it does, it helps you in doing those things which Text2AL or certain Microsoft processes cannot do. So like we talked about application area, and I don't have application area set, so you can come here using your command palette. You can say application area, and you'll see two commands: add application area to active editor, which means this page, or add application area to active projects, which means whatever the files are within the scope of this folder. If there is a page or a report where application area is missing, go ahead and add it. So if you click on this command with ALAZ extension, it'll start setting it up here. Do you want to add missing application area? Yes, right? As soon as you say yes, it let you choose which one you want. For all pertinent extensions that you're building, it'll be all as of now. So as soon as I said all, it started adding that application area in all the page fields as well as on all the actions. And this is not just this page. If you go to any other page in the page extension, that will also have the application area attached. The other thing that is needed after this conversion is the users category that is missing. And again, users category and application area together makes your object searchable in your modern client. So if you don't have an application area and users category on a page or a report, you can't use it. You can't search that object in Tell Me feature. So if I say sales orders, wherever I'll see it here as list, this is my users category. So that's where the users category becomes important, because it segregates that into different areas while you do Tell Me, in your modern client. But if one of your page is added in some standard pages, you don't need on that particular page to have a users category. But again, if you want to do it in bulk, ALAZ extension also have that, I guess. Yes. Move with users. No, they don't have users category. I thought they had. Okay. Oh, yes, they didn't have it. Okay, I was confused somewhere else. But then there is one more thing, because you are coming from CAL, you will never have this data classification set in the CAL environment. Nobody does that as far as I know. So like you can still set it on CAL. Like if you go to a table that we have, I can always come and set the data classification here, but nobody cares in Business Central 14 environment to change this because it's not mandated there. But here it should be something which are from a list of available options, and this is against that for that GDPR thing that's available, right? So you have to set this, and you have so many tables in your extension. Again, use the ALAZ and use the command to add data classification to the project or to the active file. Once you do that, it'll again ask you, do you want to do it? Yes, and then you need to choose what type of data classification you want for all the tables, and that will also get updated. So using Text2AL and these commands from ALAZ extensions, you'll have, it'll reduce the amount of time and efforts that you have to put to bring your custom code from CAL to AL. Any questions?
Saurabh, one question.
Yeah.
This data classification property, I think not required for flow field. I don't know the logic too.
Yeah, because it's only for the fields which actually store the data as a physical field.
Okay, that is the only reason.
Yeah, that's the only reason. Because it's a virtual field, the flow field, so that's why it's not required in flow fields and flow filters, I guess. Any other questions? Okay, if not, I guess that's, let me see. I guess that was all for today. And this is the summary. I would suggest that you use at least these parameters which are here while running your Txt2AL, and so that you get an output that is kind of ready for your AL environment. And then using these two commands from AL-AZ extension, it can also help to set other properties which are mandated in AL environment. So if there are no questions, then thank you. And I guess who had that question? Brizendra or somebody, I guess Keshav, right? Somebody had some question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so Keshav, you can stay. And thank you all. We'll see you next week.
Yeah. Thanks, Saurav.
Thanks, man.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Raf.
Thanks. Thanks, Dave. Okay, Keshav.
Bye.
Yeah, he was saying something. Bye.
Hello.
Yeah, Keshav.
Hey, sir. I am just using a block field as a text, and I just got something from the Google, and in that I just got two functions. That is, first one is get work description, and the second one is set work description.
Mm-hmm.
So by using these functions, can we use the block field as a text?
And I don't know, have you noticed in your Dynamics nav also as in Business Central 14 CAL version? And let me open that. Microsoft is using it one place, and I guess we talked about it in the last meeting or last to last meeting about it. Or maybe you are not there, but okay. So the way Microsoft is using it is on your sales header. Yeah, there is
Yes.
a field called work description, right? So if you see here, it's not in the sales order, but I'm pretty sure it's in the sales invoice. So when you open your sales invoice, you'll see that there is a field as you're talking about, and that's the exact field called work description, which is a text field. This text is during PC open discussion. We can write any length of text here. Okay. As
Yes.
soon as I move focus from this field or click tab from it, it will actually go and store that data into a blob field behind the scene. And that will happen based on your set work description. Okay. And when you open this record, then your get work description is called, and this date value is fetched and converted to text.
Okay.
Right. So yeah, refer to this example,
Yes.
and I'm pretty sure in your sales invoice page, if you go, yeah, you will see that this is the field that we were talking about in a while ago, which is work description. And in the on validate of it, you will find set work description. Okay, which then internally calls that function which you saw. And on after get record of this page, we'll have get work description somewhere. Yeah, get work description. So in the page, it is a text field. Okay. In the page, it is a text field which is visible to user. But behind the scene, it as soon as user moves focus out of that field, this gets stored here as blob. And whenever that record is opened,
Okay.
it gets that text converted and send it back to that page.
Okay, fine.
Okay, does that answer your question?
Yes, yes. Now I got that. How to work it. This.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thanks a lot.
Okay, okay, everybody. See you
Thank you,
then next
Saurav.
week. Thanks, man.
Hi, Saurav.
Hi.
Sorry to interrupt you before you were about to close the meeting.
No problems. Go ahead, Rishikesh.
No, actually, I was looking for some content. I have to present technical differences between NAV 2016 and Business Central.
Technical difference between NAV 2016 and Business Central.
Yes.
What kind of technical? As in, from which perspective? As a developer, as an administrator?
Yes, as a developer.
Oh, so yeah, you as in, will you find something by default? I doubt. But yeah, as in, if you want to talk about it and make notes about it, I have no problems. I'll just stop the recording and then you can talk about it if you want.
Yes, yes.
Okay.